What's going on, everybody? Shonen Express here, coming to you with another Shonen Express podcast. I'm excited to discuss all the things that came out in Weekly Shonen Jump this week. For those of you who don't know, this podcast goes over Weekly Shonen Jump, everything that came out in the previous week. We actually had an early release last Friday. This came out. This podcast is definitely coming out after that, but this podcast just kind of discusses Weekly Shonen Jump and everything that comes out in that. And so without kind of getting too bogged down, let's just get into it. So this week the cover of the magazine went to a brand new series, and I don't quite know what they want me to call the title. The title is literally 6 P's in a row, so I don't know if they want me to call it like PPPPPP or like something else, but I'm gonna literally call it 6P until I figure out how they want me to pronounce it. Even that's kind of weird, but the weird title aside, I did think that this was a good chapter, a good, interesting series, hopefully, that we'll be starting here. And I love the artwork in this series. So it's super different than some of the artwork that we've seen previously. I tried to look up the mangaka. The mangaka is actually not even going by their name. It's some kind of it's like a pen name or something like that they've decided to go by, and I can't find anything else by this pen name out there. So as far as I can tell, this manga is the first attempt of this mangaka in Weekly Shonen Jump, which is cool. I love to see new authors get a chance to present what they have, and like I said, the art looks great. Kind of going through this chapter, I like Lucky. I like him as the main character. I'm excited to see kind of as the series unfolds what the series has for him. I'm super glad that we got to see some of the relationship with his mom. I love that he really loves the piano, and his mom, despite all the hardship that this has caused him and his family, his mom still genuinely wants to foster in him that love of this instrument. I thought that was really cool in this chapter. Now, I do have a bunch of questions. The first, so partway through this chapter, at his school, there was this girl who seems to know his last name, that Otagame last name, and she seems to say it, and she doesn't. I'm wondering if she is somehow involved with them in some kind of supernatural way. It seems as if there will be some kind of supernatural element to this manga that we haven't quite seen yet, because we see him audition for that art school to play the piano, and the one member of the judging committee, that guy with a hat, who I really like, by the way, I'm really into that guy. I like the design. I can't wait to see more of him. But he sees the other 6 siblings as young kids standing around Lucky, and I'm really curious as to where this series is going to go. I like series that are kind of non-traditional. I will definitely be grouping this series in the other category whenever, it's not the cover, but I like non-traditional series like this. Obviously, a manga about a guy who likes to play the piano is very different. I think it's a different idea, and I'm very glad that it's happening right now, and so I look forward to the future. And my one prediction I'll make after reading chapter 1 is that the mom is probably going to die in the next chapter. I'm almost positive about that. I could be wrong. Obviously we'll see this coming week if I am wrong, but I have bad feelings for the mom. But for the most part, this was a great chapter. I'm glad to see that the series is going to start. I'd love to have a better way to say the series. If you do have a better way to say the series, or I'm missing something, please leave it down in the comment section. I'd love to see what it is I'm missing and what it is you guys have to say. So I've decided to structure this a little bit differently. I've decided to break this down to, every week I'll talk about the cover page, I'll talk about anything on break, and then I'll talk about the cover page, new things, or like ending manga, then what's on break, and then I'm going to go into different categories where I've picked a winner and a loser from each of the 3 categories. My categories are other, which is just anything that doesn't fit into either comedy or battle. Those are the three that I have. I would include sports, but there are literally no sports manga in the magazine right now. So while I'll include that as a genre, for my yearly end videos, I won't be including it week to week because there's just not enough to put in there. So on break this week was One Piece. This is kind of expected. We know that One Piece is going to be on break, usually about every other week, so no surprises there. One Piece is on break this week. Can't wait to see it for next week. But with that, let's get into the other category. And so the loser for the other category, my least favorite in the other category this week, was chapter 211 of Dr. Stone. Now, I like Dr. Stone. The reason that it's on the bottom is honestly because this category really was pretty decent this week. I just didn't love the Dr. Stone chapter, and here's why. First of all, I do like the stuff with the rice. I like that they're making the rice and everything. But this being the main chapter, it was a good setup chapter, but that's pretty much all it was. We didn't really get a lot of either action or developing the story. We got the rubber city and the rice, but all in all, it was pretty much basically a setup chapter, and I wasn't that crazy about it. So unfortunately, if I have to pick a loser for the other category this week, it was Dr. Stone. But moving on to the other manga in the other category, we have the Elusive Samurai chapter 32. And this is a pretty good chapter. It's another kind of setup chapter, but we learned that, unfortunately, and this was really confusing to me. If you guys know anything else about this, down in the comments section, I'd love to hear your take on this. But they the guys that the Hoshina clan or whatever, the guys that they had saved just in this last arc, apparently continued to fight and die. What I didn't necessarily like about this chapter, however, was all the stuff about the food. Most of this chapter was pretty much like getting food for Tokiyuki, and that's kind of dumb to me. I mean, there are things in this manga that I do like, and this is just not one of them. I didn't enjoy that very much. But what I did enjoy is then finding out that this was all actually a recon mission that the group was going on to figure out what was the state of the territory that they had to invade to get this fish. So at the end of the day, it was it was worth it. So there was and by that I mean there was an actual cause for this mission to go get the food. And I do think it gives us some great setup. That last panel where we see what will probably be the next arc's enemies, I do like that setup. So yeah, it was a decent chapter overall. But next we got to talk about Ayakashi Triangle chapter 60, and this was okay. So there was a popularity poll this chapter for Ayakashi Triangle, and very predictably, Suzu was number 1 and Matsuri was number 2. But I was very surprised to see that Rochka, the relatively new character in this manga, was number 3. People must really like Rochka, and I just don't understand that. But yeah, that was kind of the only real mix-up. And the only really thing I have to say about this chapter is, of course, it was a kiss that got Suzu back. Of course, that's the thing, and of course they act embarrassed about it. So, I've seen... this is pretty predictable. The reason why it's not... as you guys know, if you've, listened to my thoughts about this series, I'm not the biggest Ayakashi Triangle fan, just pretty much because I'm not a big fan service guy. I'm not a guy that really likes a lot of fan service, and this manga is a lot of fan service. But I think that this chapter, presented the point that it wanted to make, did what it needed to do without an excessive amount of fan service. It was just kind of wholesome, and in that way, I appreciated this chapter. But that's all I really have to say about it. Next, we have Mashal, Magic and Muscles, chapter 78. And this chapter opens up with what I assume will be the next arc's villain, literally killing the members of the Saint Andre or something's team. I really liked the second, however you say their power thing. I really liked his the giant, like almost Norse, guys with hammers. I loved that. I love that he went toe to toe with Ames for the last visionary competition. I was into that, and how easily the villain takes him out was interesting too. So I liked seeing that. I'm interested to see more about this villain and learn kind of more about him in that way. And I love Easton's team. I love that our main team is Mash. And just they're sitting there eating cream puffs when they roll up, not scared at all. I do have a question. I do wonder. I understand, obviously, because we've gotten here, why it ended up being the 3 members of Easton that are on this team. But I do think that you definitely could have picked other better members from Easton, from the other dorms even, of Easton to go in this competition. I mean, Margaret should definitely be on this team. I mean, he is one of the strongest members of this team, or of Easton. So I definitely think that should have happened, but it didn't, and that's all right because I like our team. But I'm definitely into that picture of this team. It was super funny. This was a good chapter this week, but that leaves us with one last manga in the other category, and that's our big other winner this week, and that is Blue Box. I'm sure this will not be the last time that I'm saying that Blue Box is the winner of the other category. I love this manga, and this chapter is no exception. I love the stuff with Taiki. I love that he is getting better at badminton. He's actually really good. He's taking Haruo on in a straight up match. I think that he'll be able to really give him a good fight and maybe even win, hopefully, in the actual competition, which is really cool. And then they all end up going to the convenience store, and I really like that. I like Hina's character. Or before I get into that, he has that conversation with his best friend where he's like, hey, if you go to nationals, are you going to ask Chinatsu out? Like, is that what's going to happen? And he's like, I don't want to force my feelings on her because we're in this house. And I just like, that's such a considerate thing. Taiki's just a great guy. And so I really liked how considerate he is. And then obviously, like I said before, the stuff with Hina at the grocery store. I love that she just takes the food. She's such a fun character, and I love the way that she's interacting with Taiki, because clearly she is into him. She likes him, I think, in some form, but is backed off as she's considerate of how he feels about Chinatsu. But she does these little things like taking his food, and then Chinatsu then coming and say like, oh, I just got a little jealous, like, can I have one too? I got a little jealous, like, in this fun, playful way. But then like Taiki is like, what did she mean by that? Like, did she just meant... I love how he always convinces himself that it's not because she likes him in any way. I love that that's always the first thing on his mind. Well, it can't be because she's into me, because she's definitely not. When in reality, I think that Chinatsu is into him. I think she does like him. I think that the aquarium little arc there definitely showed that, but I mean, obviously we don't know for sure, but I think she definitely does. But yeah, chapter 21 of Blue Box was definitely my winner in the other category this week. For sure. Which brings us to the comedy portion of the podcast. And so, just so we're all aware, currently running in Weekly Shonen Jump, and I went over the others, obviously, but the manga in the comedy section that I put in the comedy section, are Sakamoto Days, Witch Watch, Me and Roboco, High School Family, and Magu-chan, God of Destruction. Those are the manga, the 5 manga that are in the comedy category for me. And so our big loser this week was Witch Watch, and honestly, the comedy category this week was really good. All of these were really, really good. So even giving Witch Watch the losing spot it was an okay chapter. It wasn't really bad. It was the losing chapter. And so chapter 30 is what came out this week. I love all the interactions that they have with Keigo in the morning. and how each of the characters interact differently with him, and how that's such a shock to him is really cool. I love him like trying to give them a briefing of like keeping him away from Crescent things, because his wolf form will be all kinds of problematic, and even the little like the comedy panels that they have about that is really funny. So yeah, I like that. And I love that. So after he turns into the wolf form, and he goes, he's going around town, and these women are falling for him and everything, and they're trying to get him to stop and come back. It's Moe that he listens to, because Moe beat him in a fight, and so now he has to listen to Moe anytime he says anything, and I thought that was funny. So overall, I did like Witch Watch this week. It wasn't a bad chapter. It just gets the losing spot because I thought it was the worst out of this section. And so, moving on, the next chapter that we have is chapter 39 of Sakamoto Days. Really good chapter. First of all, it got the color page. It was one of the manga this week that did get a color page, and it was a cool color page. But this chapter was just really cool, is what I would say this chapter is. Not super funny, but super cool. I love the training with Sakamoto. In the beginning, where the sniper is firing at him a bunch of times, he keeps dodging, catching all the bullets with chopsticks. That's super cool. Nagumo is cool. He comes in dressed like Shin, and Sakamoto knows it's him right away. It's really cool, and his kind of warning is interesting. And then, of course, the main bulk of this chapter was with Shin and Lu at this pet store, and how Shin is just so enamored with puppies is so funny. How he's like, we got to get in and get out, and then all of a sudden the puppy, he's presented with this puppy and he falls in love with it. I thought that was really funny. But the main part of this chapter that was really cool is the stuff with Saw. I love that one of those top assassins, he is there to take them out. He's trying. Obviously, Sakamoto is the main target that he has, but he's there. And he fights with Shin, and Shin really puts up a fight. Saw is really cool. I really like the way that he fights, but Shin is definitely putting up a fight, and I love that. I love that Shin is able to do that. It's been a while since we've seen Shin actually do some good hardcore fighting, and so I'm really into the fact that he was able to fight Saw kind of toe-to-toe like this. So that was really cool to see. I really liked that, and it was a great chapter overall. But moving on, we have Me and Roboco, chapter 57, another really good chapter. This was a really funny chapter. This Millie character is interesting. In fact, the whole Eden organization of like robots that are trying to take over the world is really interesting. And this gets to a point that I've wondered almost since the very beginning of this series. Roboco is not an order maid. We know that. I feel very confident about that she is not a regular order maid. And I think Roboco is literally one of these robots that is trying to take over the world. Like, I think that's what she was trying to do before. And I love the old Roboco, this hardened criminal, like this warrior Roboco that we see. I really hope that that's accurate, because it just paints such a funny picture of who she is now. But I'm definitely, and the stuff with, I love the lightsaber stuff with the other guy, the other robot there, and she tries to fight him with her cuteness and somehow survives the whole ordeal. It is really funny. Roboco is super funny. It was a funny chapter, but it also gave me some insight into maybe Roboco is this other kind of robot, this war robot, not an order maid, which I think makes a ton of sense. So that's what I'm going. That's my headcanon right now. But yeah, it was a good chapter. Next, we have chapter 54 of High School Family. This is a good chapter, too. Ichiro is finally on the volleyball team. He's a main member of the volleyball team. I love that. I love that he's so good at volleyball, and that's really funny. And we got introduced to a new character called Shibuya, who is kind of like a punk character. He used to be a good volleyball player, but or is a good volleyball player, but it's just like disregards the rules and everything. He's just kind of a punk kid. I love that he shows up and is fight, going toe-to-toe with Ichiro, and Ichiro puts him down every time, and then ends up making him a straight-laced guy by the end of the chapter. That was just super funny. I really liked High School Family. It was good. But our big winner in the comedy category this week is Magu-chan, God of Destruction, with chapter 59. And the reason is not because it was funny. I mean, there were funny parts of it, but it's mainly because I think that this manga, Magu, is really good at conveying emotional scenes very well. At least to me. I really like the way that this manga is able to show more emotional scenes. And this stuff with Kikyo and Yuika and their relationship and how that started in the beginning, Kikyo wanting Yuika to come to school, and be with her in that way. And now that Kikyo has to decide, what middle school is she going to, and or high school rather, is she going to, and how that's going to differ, and saying like, I'm going to go, I have this better opportunity. I'm going to go take this better opportunity, but that probably means we won't see each other anymore. This is just, it's a real life thing, and I think that the manga actually does a great job of covering what is really a really hard situation. I remember, I had a great group of friends when I was in high school, and we did everything together, got along great. But when the time came for us to decide on colleges and where we were going to go, we all went in different directions, and that's a hard thing to do, because you're going to leave these friends that you've had for years at some point, and probably not see each other maybe ever again, but if so, probably very few times. So it is a hard thing, and I think that it did a really good job of conveying that. And obviously, next week, I think we're going to get kind of the resolution to this, so I'm excited for that. But yeah, I thought it was a really good chapter, and that's why it's my winner in the comedy category this week. Which leaves us with just one final category to go, and that is the battle category. Obviously, this is the one that has the most manga in it, because Weekly Shonen Jump is really into shonen battle manga. Just so we're all clear, the manga that are in this category, that I've put in this category, are My Hero Academia, Jujutsu Kaisen, Black Clover, Undead Unluck, Mission Yozakura Family, Neru Way of the Martial Artist, The Hunter's Guild Red Hood, and One Piece. Those are the manga in this category. Obviously, One Piece was on break this week, so we won't be talking about that anymore. But the other ones we will be talking about. And the big loser this week, which might surprise the heck out of you, because I'm sure some of you thought that this was a great chapter, but the biggest loser for me is My Hero Academia chapter 326. I have some hot takes about this chapter. Maybe they're not that hot takes, but I was very upset with this chapter. I did not like it at all. And this is mainly because this stain, the stain that we're seeing in this chapter, I have no idea who it is. This is not, it's unrecognizable from the stain that was in the beginning of this manga. The stain that I thought was actually pretty cool. I liked him as a villain. His whole talk with All Might did not make any sense to me at all. So, Stain has this talk with All Might about how, what All Might should be, what he stood for, what he was, and all of this kind of stuff. And then he kind of hides All Might from the girl he saved, who continues to go and clean the statue to make sure it looks nice. He has this whole civil conversation. This doesn't make any sense at all. The Stain that I know would have killed All Might on the spot. I don't know why he didn't. So, the reason Stain thought All Might was the only true hero is because he was truly altruistic, and that's still true, I suppose. He is still altruistic, but Stain has seen a huge shift. I mean, All Might's sitting here like everything I've done is wrong, which should send Stain down a spiral, right? Because if the apex of heroism to Stain said everything I've done is wrong, Stain should go ballistic. He should definitely resolve that and say, no, you were right all along, which is kind of what he says, but in a way that's so old friend that doesn't make sense. I mean, this guy is a murderer, and then the end of the chapter, when he says, come after me, the guy who killed 40 heroes, it's like, yeah, this guy's a mass murderer of other heroes. I mean, he's a terrible dude. Why are we treating him like he's like a hero? when he's clearly not. I just hated how Stain was treated in this chapter. And it does lead me to kind of wonder if All Might will somehow like pull a Batman and like train himself in some other way to be able to go fight Stain. I'm kind of interested to see that, because it seems like Stain is implying come after me and fight me. But yeah, I don't fully know what's gonna happen, but I didn't like this chapter. Did not like it one bit. But moving on from that, we've got Black Clover chapter 306 came out, and I like this chapter a lot. So this chapter was almost entirely about Xenon, one of the characters that we're fighting. First of all, the arrow attack that Yuno used against him was super, super cool. And ended up hitting him and taking him out. And then we get into this flashback of his life, where we see that his life, Xenon's life, was essentially almost the same as Yuno's. He met like a guy named Alan, who is clearly supposed to be Asta, and they grew up together in what is essentially the Magic Knights of the Spade Kingdom there, which was really cool. To see, and obviously the tragedy of him having to kill Alan to take down this devil, which then just drove him into the idea that the strong are the ones that survive, and then he wanted to make the deal with the devils. Now, I think that this family, I didn't know that they were a biological family before, but this family of like Xenon, Vonica, and the other guy, they have got to be related to Yuno. They've got to be related to the royal family in some way. And what's very interesting is the older brother that Xenon's talking to. I don't know who that is, and I'm really interested to see if that's not either Yuno's uncle or Yuno's, or not uncle, rather, Yuno's like father. Like, I think that it could be that it's Yuno's dad. But yeah, let me know in the comment section if you guys have any opinions about that. But it was a really good Black Clover chapter. The art was on point this week. I mean, it looked amazing this week. But it was a good chapter. But moving on from that, we've got Undead Unluck chapter 79. And so this chapter was okay. I didn't love it. Honestly, this probably would have gotten the losing spot if it weren't for how much I hate how My Hero Academia used Stain. But it was alright. I did like seeing Andy's side of what is the first chapter of the series, you know? Because we saw it from Fuko's perspective on the first chapter. I liked seeing Andy's side of it this time, and so that was kind of cool. And, you know, they did the stuff about how Andy and Fuko are in love and all of that stuff, which is fine, but it was good. Andy's obviously up near Billy and Fuko, so he's hopefully gonna, you know, be able to affect some change up there. The fight with Rip was interesting, but all in all, it was just an okay chapter. Honestly, I thought it was just okay. I do wonder if this manga is not about to end here in the coming days. I think in the coming weeks, rather. I feel like maybe after our fight with Spring here, this might be coming into the end. It almost feels like this manga is like about to end. Like it's like the mangaka is writing it almost as if at any point it could end. So I don't know. It's possible that happens. It's also possible that it doesn't. So we will have to see. But that's really all I had to say about Undead Unluck. And then we've got chapter 98 of Mission Yozakura Family. I like this manga a lot. I've liked it for pretty much its whole run. But this chapter was fun and awkward. I love the awkward nature of Shinzo. I love that he's kind of having this almost date with the butler girl Ayako. I think that's really, really interesting, but as soon as he realizes what it is, he gets all awkward and nervous. I like the highlight on Kengo. Kengo is one of the family members that we don't actually get to see a whole lot, so I liked highlighting him, and I liked highlighting, you know, some of his mischievous nature and stuff, and even Now was there too. So I liked being able to spend time with them, and I thought that was cool. But overall, I think what this chapter did was really highlight how good of a character, how good-natured and heartfelt Shinzo is. Shinzo is definitely my second favorite character in this series, and I think that he's probably, if I had to guess, They might have done a popularity poll, I'm not sure, but if I had to guess, I would imagine that Shinzo right now is probably a pretty popular character. But he's just so kind, you know, even Ayako and all of that. So I like this chapter, but it didn't win the winner spot, but I thought it was a good chapter. Then next we have Neru, Way of the Martial Artist, coming in for chapter 10. It's just its 10th chapter, so I really like all the explanation about traditional martial arts stuff. The stuff about a kudaya, and I could be pronouncing that super wrong, let me know in the comments, but which is like the little shaft that they put a shorter arrow in to help, you know, it fly faster and straighter. I loved learning about that. I didn't even know that was a thing until this chapter, so that was really cool. And Nero is just the best. I love that he's able to, like, he memorizes these, like, patterns, and even for archery, something that he says I'm not very good at, he's able to pull the bowstring back, that is just not, you know, that Kaname is not able to pull back, and then she directs him. I really like the teamwork going on for these two, and I love how much the older brother guy was so into them. They get back, and he's like, who fired the arrow? And they both point at the other one, which I think takes humility and shows that how these two have grown together from these past couple chapters. And overall, I think Kaname is an awesome character. I'm super excited to see her in the future. She's, I think, one of my favorite characters in this series so far. Again, only 10 chapters long. We got a lot of time yet before I, you know, start definitively picking things. But yeah, Kaname is definitely Kengo. That's a whole different manga. Kaname is definitely a great character. I think that she will probably stick around and be here for the long haul. But I'm really interested in this manga. I like it a lot. So next up is chapter 11 of the Hunters Guild Red Hood. This manga is getting super interesting. We met this chapter a guy called Moscow Cobbs, who I thought was really interesting. He's a really cool villain. He's got the kind of Nappa, almost Kingpin, like giant bald guy look. I really liked his abilities, his like workman, like rule abilities, that gave him different things. I'm so interested to see what the power system in this manga is going to eventually be. It seems like we've got a lot of disparate things going on all at once, and so I'm really interested to see kind of that system hammered out in the future. But he was an interesting character. I love like what he brought to the story so far. And Mario is the best. I know this is only 11 chapters long, but Mario is my favorite character so far, for sure. I love his plant stuff and how he takes care of that guy all by himself, the Moscow guy all by himself, and then frees the other guys to say, hey, you can join me, you cannot join me, either way, it's your free choice. I really like Mario. I think he's so cool. And obviously the real plan starts now. The end of the chapter, he freed all of the people that were in prison, including Velo, and we're on to the real plan. So I'm super excited to see that go down. So yeah, it was a great chapter this week for sure. And last but certainly not least, the winner of the Battle Shonen category is Jujutsu Kaisen this week. Chapter 159 came out, and oh boy, was it a good chapter. We could see the background of that Higuruma guy that we saw a little bit last week of. Higuruma's amazing. First of all, I like lawyer stories. I think his specific lawyer story is super interesting. The detail and the nuance that this specific story takes is so interesting and so unique, I think, that it really caught my eye. He is just a guy who's dedicated to getting the right results, and we see him for most of the time, you know, working with this client who seems like he's definitely guilty, and they actually get through the first trial, and he's declared innocent, and they'll appeal right away, and sure enough they did, and then he's convicted and sentenced to life in prison, and he's always gotten this look from his clients of disdain when they don't win cases, and he hates that look, and this guy finally did it. When this trial, you know, the trial said he's put to, you know, life in prison. He got that look one more time, and it's in that moment that he awakened. It looks like awakened his, you know, oh my gosh, What is it called? What is a Jujutsu sorcerer's abilities called? His technique, right? His sorcerer technique or Jujutsu technique? Yeah. Anyway, I can't remember the specific name for it, and that's terrible, but I can't. But it's in that ability he awakens his technique, that giant, like, masked, you know, ghost-looking thing behind him when he says there's going to be a retrial. Like, right now, I'm super into this. I'm really, really into this Higuruma. Man, there's a lot of weird names in Weekly Shonen Jump. But I'm so into this character. I thought this was an amazing chapter, an amazing introduction to this character that hopefully will mean something to us in the future. But he's really cool. I'm super excited to see where this manga obviously will go next in the Culling game, because he's part of the Culling game for sure. So yeah. So guys, thanks so much for listening to this podcast. If you guys had anything to say, leave it down in the comment section. I'd love to interact with you down there. I'm always like interacting with your comments. And be sure to like this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Shonen Express is the YouTube channel where I produce all kinds of content about manga, including this podcast. So definitely like and subscribe. And until next time, this is Shonen Express signing off.